What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So, one of my students asked me a very philosophical question, and I thought I wanted to share it with everyone to kind of provide people with more value as well as some perspective. So, the question my student had is, what does enough look like? And what he's referring to is financially. And let me just kind of share my experience. So, for the longest time, if you asked me 1 to 2 years ago, my goal was to retire at 35, making $20,000 a month in positive cash flow. And if you watch my other videos, the average profit is around $100 to $200 per unit. So obviously, if I want uh, $20,000 a month in cash flow, I'm going to need around 100 units of real estate, which I'm currently very close to with 90 units. And since I'm in a higher cash flowing market like Oklahoma in the southeast, typically it is $200 per unit once stabilized. So I can pretty much, I don't have to buy more real estate. I just need to let my real estate stabilize, which takes time, right? Apartments take around 2 3 years to stabilize. A mobile home park, if I decide to keep it and not sell it, it takes around 5 years to stabilize. So I have enough to get that 20K a month, but it's going to take time. So, I just need to be patient and let my assets stabilize and do nothing else, and I'll hit my goal. But, what I kind of realized with money, kind of definitely more recently in the past, 6 to 12 months, was you kind of hit a certain point where you feel like you have enough. So, as an example, I think I read an article, and from personal experience, the moment you make beyond $120,000, I think up to about, I think maybe around $500,000, so 120,000 to $500,000, the more you make, your quality of life doesn't necessarily improve. For me personally, I live very humbly. That's just kind of the way I am. I don't really need material goods. I don't need a nice fancy car. I don't need to go on nice fancy vacations. I don't need to go to the best restaurants. Like, I find just as much joy, just as much fulfillment from, driving any car. Like, I've had my same car for the past 10 years when I was $250,000 in student debt, and I still drive the same exact car when I'm worth around $5 million, right? Like, if I were to buy and upgrade my car to an Audi R8, which was my dream car for the longest time, which I can obviously buy right now, I feel like I'd be happy for maybe a month. But after that, my quality of life is exactly the same. Same thing with buying new clothes. I used to always love buying new clothes. It used to feel really nice and good. And, I bought way too much clothes and shoes. I'm still wearing the same clothes today. And at this point, once again, doesn't really give me much value. For vacations, I love traveling. To be honest, when I typically travel, I like to, I don't really look at the price as much, but for me, I look at what gives me value. Like, am I willing to pay double for the airfare to be in first class, or pay half to be in economy? And for me, I'd rather pay half in economy and then take that money I saved and invest it or spend it when I'm actually at the destination, right? Like, if you want to eat at a nice, let's say you're in Japan and you want to go to a really nice omakase, you want to try A5 Wagyu, I'd rather spend the money there. So, that's kind of the realization that I went through. And it's just kind of like people view money as status, right? Like I want to be perceived by my friends, my family, for having a nice car, for being wealthy, for being all that. Like, that's what I initially thought. But as I grew older and my wealth increased, like, none of that really matters. Like, honestly, when you see somebody with a nice car, the first thing you're thinking is, oh, that person must be so rich and successful, I'm jealous. No, that's not it. They actually don't care about what you are, the person driving the car. They just think that, oh, that's a really nice car. I'm imagining myself driving that car. So, that's kind of a thing that I've done, I'd say, in the past like couple of years, is just really detach myself from the status of it, from the material of it, and it never ends, right? Like if you attach yourself to a nice car, there's always a newer car out there, right? You can buy an Audi R8, and then in 5 years, there's a nicer Audi R8 or a nicer Lambo. And if you kind of tie your self-esteem, your identity to that lifestyle, you'll never truly be happy and never truly be fulfilled, right? That's why there's a lot of rich people out there who have everything in the world, but they're not happy because they're just chasing the next goalpost, right? And the same thing applies to money. Like if I hit $20,000 a month, um, what's the next goal? I want to hit $30,000 a month and $40,000 a month, and then $100,000 a month and $1 million a month. But like after you get your basic needs met, which is just housing, food, being able to do a couple of things that you like to do, spending time with friends and family, but up to a certain point, like how much is that really? Like even $10,000 a month, it's quite a bit of money. And to be honest, I make around that much of a W two, and um, it doesn't really make you happier. Like at this point, if I were to make even $20,000 a month for my W two, I don't really inflate my lifestyle, right? I literally my cost of living has been the same since I graduated pharmacy school back in 2013. It's been 10 years and my lifestyle stayed exactly the same. Like I find just as much joy eating at Chipotle than I do eating at a Michelin star restaurant, right? Like to me, I just like enjoying good food. So, kind of a long ramble here, but pretty much what I learned was what enough is enough. It really varies per person, and you really have to understand your why. For me, it's really time freedom. Like I just want options in my life. Like for example, if my real estate, let's just say, made $10,000 a month in passive income to the point where that replaces my W two income, at this point I can decide, hey, I actually like my job. I still like working. I can continue to work. If let's just say, hey, I'm making $10,000 a month, the real estate, maybe I'll work part time. Maybe I'll just work 1 day a week. Maybe I can just leave my W 2 job completely, right? It's just really options. And as you make more money, you're just buying back your time, right? Like, right now, maybe I'll clean my apartment like once a month. But, once you hit a certain amount of passive income or net worth, then you can like hire a maid to come every week or every 2 weeks, right? So that's really what you're doing is in the beginning, like 99% of us, we're just focused on building income and building wealth. But once you've achieved that income and that wealth, you're more focused on buying back your time, right? Like, where can I get back my time to allocate to things I want to do? Because I'm sure we all experience this. Sometimes you just wake up, 1 day a week, and you just don't feel like going to work or doing any work. And if you have a W 2, you're obligated to go. But if, let's just say, you're financially free and you have the option to not work, that day you just can take your day off. Just go to the beach, do whatever you want. So, this is something that I've really been thinking about lately. Like, I just recently traveled to Europe, Paris and Greece, which are the two most expensive areas. And I only spent, I think, like $5,000 for a 2 week vacation there. And if I was making even $10,000 a month in passive income, I can go on a trip like that once a month and still have $5,000 left for my daily living expenses, right? Which is plenty. A lot of people live off of that. So um, that's kind of a realization I went through recently. So, I might have, eventually I do want to hit, 20K a month in passive income, but I just think setting that time limit of 35 was making me very unhappy, to be honest. It was putting unnecessary pressure on me for no reason, and it just didn't let me enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. So, like for me, I was always thinking about like, oh, I have like 2 to 3 more years to hit that 20K a month goal, but maybe I'm making $5,000 a month and I wasn't enjoying it. But in a big perspective view, even $5,000 a month passive income, that's a lot of money. That's more than people make as a W 2. So, yeah, these are kind of things that I've been kind of hitting, um, thinking about recently as I've paused buying real estate for a while as I let my real estate marinate. And just come to the realization that it just really is the options, and you really have to enjoy the process. Like, you really, really have to enjoy the process. So for me, I just love to learn, and the best way for me to learn is to teach, which is what inspired me to do YouTube, social media, and then create my course and my one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as my weekly Q&A sessions. Is I just love to teach people because it helps me learn and master concepts continuously, and it puts me on my toes. So for me, I could do this for the rest of my life, and it doesn't even feel like work. Like, I sometimes go home after a 10-hour day at work, and I'm able to teach a Q&A session, and that gives me more energy. Before, at the beginning of the session, I had no energy. At the end of the session, it gives me energy. So for me, it feels very light, and it gives me energy, right? Versus sometimes your W-2, sometimes I feel like my energy is being sucked out of me. So for me, it's just the options to do things that give me energy, right? Whether that's teaching, whether that's traveling, whether that's spending time with friends and family. So that's why I kind of, preach now to my students, is that, once you own enough real estate, and even to me, like, I own enough real estate for a lifetime. Like, many people will not own 90 units. And, if I own 200 units, it's not going to make me any happier. If I own 300 units, 1,000 units, it's not going to make me any happier. It just sounds cool to say, to flex to random strangers online, like, I own 1,000 units, but it's not going to make you happier unless you derive your happiness from that flex. But I'm detaching myself from that identity, where I don't really care what people think. I don't really care, um, to flex. It doesn't make me any happier to show off that I own 90 units of real estate. I'm worth X amount in net worth. That gets more views, but it doesn't make me any happier. So, like, what I like to ask my students is, like, you really found your why? And for me, it's freedom and options, and doing what I want that gives me energy, and just realizing, like, how much you really need for that, right? Like, I initially thought $20,000 a month was what I needed, but to be honest, even if I made half that, you're still living a very good life, right? Even $10,000 a month. So, and for me, I wanted to retire early to travel for like maybe a year or two, but honestly, if you took a 1 to 2 years off and you just traveled everywhere, you might get bored of it, right? Like, you might get bored of it, and it gets tiring to travel too. So, hopefully you found value from this impromptu rant. Once again, I hope this answers the question for my student, and hopefully others found value from this. Hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.